The way she fell asleep was either we were bottle feeding her to sleep or we would rock her to sleep.
Yes,
And
yes,
then
yes.
during the night, we had to replicate these things over and over again. I'm just going to take an example of a 9-month-old baby who's still
Sure.
waking up every 2 hours. Is it
Yeah.
hunger? No, most likely not.
Right.
So if you really want to understand why is it that your baby is waking up every 2 hours to feed or to get rocked or to get back their pacifier, in clinical terms, they call it sleep onset association disorder. Hello and welcome, our modern Indian parents. This is our second episode, and today we are talking about a topic that will hit home: your baby sleep, and why is it that your baby wakes up every 2 hours?
Oh my God. Like, I think this is the main topic that we need to talk about. This is something all parents are going through. And I think, like, being in an Indian household, like, as soon as this happens, you literally get like these few main responses. And I think the one which we were talking about earlier is like, it's okay. Like, all babies have to wake up every 2 hours. This is part of life. Whenever you're going to deliver, like, whenever you're going to become a parent, what's the first thing they tell you? Like, oh, your sleep is going to be gone. So I think that's like literally they're like, okay, no more sleep, enjoy your sleep before the baby comes. Like that is just always a given statement. And then I think the other thing is they'll be like, it's okay, your baby's hungry, like just give milk right away. Like that's kind of like that go to, you have to do it. Or we'll just blame it on like teething, sleep regression, growth spurts, like those main things. So I think that's why this is going to be a great episode, because you're going to break it down for us.
No, you know what? You're bringing out so many like very valid things because that is what like we are told by these are the various things to blame. But the
Yeah.
problem is that nobody really understands what's going on. It's all just like wild
Right.
guesses that teeth must be coming out, or most likely they were hungry, they didn't eat
I
enough in the day.
know.
But I'm like,
Yeah.
what is that the case for the past 8 months? And I think
Yeah.
one you that you didn't mention, which I see a lot, is like this dangling the carrot approach for parents to get them to accept
Right.
the sleepless nights. So it's like their baby's 4 months old, they'll be like, hey, you know what? When they turn 6 months, it gets all better. They start sleeping a lot longer. And
Yes.
then when they turn 6 months old, they're like, oh, it's at 1 year. And then they turn 1 year old, they're like, no, it's at 18 months. And the carrot just keeps going further and further away.
Oh
And
my
they're just
God.
like, accept your fate. I got that. That thing, like once you're like while I was pregnant, one of my aunts
Yeah.
told me that that's it, like just enjoy your sleep. And I was not sleeping well during my pregnancy. So I'm like, are you telling
So
me
you're
that
like,
I'm
what's
not going to be
happening?
sleep? My sleep. Why?
I
Why do I
know, we
have to
all
give up on
do.
my sleep?
And you know what? Every single parent, like, if you ask, like, oh, do you want another kid? They're like, I don't know, because like sleep is like that main concern. They're like, I don't know if I can do that again, like being up all night. All of us in that way.
Yeah,
So I feel like there's so many reasons, as you were saying. So can we break it down part by part? I really want to know. First, can we
most
talk about
definitely.
hunger? Okay, so if your child's waking up every 2 hours a night, how many times is it related to hunger? Is it always related to hunger? Is that one of the biggest reasons?
Fantastic question. Okay, so I can't wait to give my 2 cents on this. So the thing with hunger is that it's really about related to the age of your child. So when you
Right.
have a newborn baby, they are 4, 6 weeks old. Their tummies are tiny. They're still getting a
Mm,
grasp of how to feed at the breast or the bottles. So, yes, they are taking small amounts of milk, and there is a likelihood that they could be waking up every 2 to 3 hours. That is biological. You
yeah,
can't run away from that. You have to brave those nights. But once your child
fair.
start getting older, they hit that 3 month, 4 month, and beyond, their stomach
Right.
capacity increases. They're able to hold more milk. They're able to feed more efficiently. And they are capable of taking more calories in during the day. So it's not
Right.
always hunger. And if you're telling me,
Right.
especially if you're talking about like a 9-month old, I'm just going to take an example of a 9-month old baby who's still
Sure.
waking up every 2 hours. Is it
Yeah.
hunger? No, most likely not.
Right.
Unless you're
Okay.
dealing with something like you're dealing with like a feeding impediment or some challenge where the child is unable to feed well. But if the child is
Yes.
healthy, feeding well during the day, if they're still waking every 2 hours at night to eat, it's not hunger.
Got
And
it.
it's not
Yeah.
that difficult to tell because you will be able to tell from the way they are feeding at night. If you are with a
Mm,
baby who is latching on the breast, let's say, and they latch for like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and they're right back off to sleep. Or if you have a baby who's bottle feeding and you give them a bottle of, let's say, 4 ounces and they take like 1 ounce and they're back to
Right.
sleep. What does that tell you?
Right. Yeah, that that's sucking. They need the soothing. It's not hunger.
Wasn't hunger. So this is a very common misconception that like I always hear from moms is like, oh, my baby woke up to feed 4 times tonight. I'm like, not your baby woke
Right.
up 4 times. You it's not always that they woke up to feed because it's not that they're always waking out of hunger. I'm sure
Right.
you have seen this as
Yeah.
a in your field as well.
And what it's and so I like how you're putting it. In the beginning, yes, they will wake up every few hours because their tummy's so tiny, they need to have more frequent feeds. But I think what you're
Yeah.
saying is where a lot of parents get stuck is that they get into this groove, and then even at 4 or 5 months, they're still doing this and they're still
And
blaming it on
beyond.
hunger. Yeah, and for me it's interesting because at 6 months when we start solids and they come to me, they're like, oh, my baby's still waking up 3 4 times at night. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, we need to start solids so that they can actually sleep through the night. And I hate to break it to you guys, but starting solids is not going to let your child sleep better because
Yeah.
basically they're getting all their calories from milk in the first year of life. So the idea is that by the time your baby reaches 5 6 months, they should be getting at least 5 to 6 milk feeds in the day, and they've learned to take bigger quantities, so they're getting all their calories from milk, so that they don't need to wake up so many times. So I think that's a big misconception. Starting solids is not going to be the answer. But I want to ask you quickly, before we move on to the next thing is, at 5 6 months, a lot of babies are still waking up 3 4 times. My
Yeah.
question is, how many times is it okay for them to wake up and actually need a feed? Is it just once? Because whenever I tell my clients, like, oh, your baby can sleep through the night, they actually get nervous. They're like, no, 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 my child is not going to be okay if they sleep for 5 hours without waking up for milk. It's not possible. Can you clarify that for us? Is it okay? Can they sleep
Of course,
longer?
of course. Most definitely. I think what we are looking at is typically what I see with the families that I work with, and is after the age of 4 months, typically most
Yeah.
babies can go through the night with one feed up to two feeds. So that is still putting the feeds 4 to 5 hours apart. So you have 4 hours
Right.
of sleep, one feed, another 4 to 5 hours of sleep, another feed, and then next thing in the morning. Or it could just be like 6 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep, one feed, and then straight away in the morning. So this is a very
Right.
common thing that can be
Yeah.
achieved, but a lot of
Yeah.
babies are not doing that. And we were going to dive
Mm.
into why is that. Okay, why is it that
Right.
the baby is needing to feed every 2 hours or sometimes every hour? A lot of the families I work
Yeah.
with, babies latching every hour, and mom is like, what's happening? Is there something wrong with my breast milk? Is the baby not full? Is it
Yeah.
what people are telling me true, that breast milk doesn't have a lot of calories, is getting like digested in like what, seconds? No, it doesn't work that
Yeah.
way, right?
Right.
So what's really
Right.
happening? So if you really want to understand why is it that your baby is waking up every 2 hours or every hour to feed or to get rocked or to get back their pacifier, in clinical terms, they call it sleep onset association disorder. And let me break it
Okay.
down for you.
Okay.
What they are
Yeah.
saying is that when your child is dependent on something external to fall asleep, this is what ends up causing night wakings. And just for the purpose of this, episode, we're just going to call them external sleep associations. So
Right.
external sleep associations are what are causing these very frequent, very exhausting night wakings. And I'll explain it to you in the context of my own daughter, right? Like I
Hmm.
struggled a lot with her night wakings. I think by the time she was about 3 months old, we were down to maybe three wakings a night. But then once the 4 month regression hit,
Yeah.
and she was between 4 and 5 months old, we were up 6 times a night minimum.
It's
And
just
it's like every hour, hour and a half, she was up. And either we were giving her a bottle, or if we had just given the bottle like an hour ago, we were replacing the pacifier, and we would just keep doing that through the night. And I was wondering, why is
right.
that happening? And the reason for that is that the way she fell asleep was either we were bottle feeding her to sleep, so she would be sucking on the bottle and then she would fall asleep while bottle feeding, or we would give her a pacifier and then we would rock her to sleep.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then
Yes.
during the night, we had to replicate these things over and over again. Either we had to pick her up, give her the bottle, and then she would fall asleep. And she would only take like an ounce or two at most. Or we had to pick her up, put in the pacifier, rock her back to sleep, and transfer her again. And we kept on doing
Right.
that. Now, the reason why we had to do this is, you see, now as a sleep consultant, now I understand this. I didn't know this when I was a new mom. Is babies, their sleep is arranged in sleep cycles, and not just babies, even for adults, our
Even
sleep
us.
is in
Yeah,
sleep
exactly.
cycles.
Yeah. Right.
So for babies, that sleep cycle could be anything between 45 minutes to 60 minutes long. For adults, is about an hour and a half long. So now what's
Okay.
happening is that your baby goes into a sleep cycle. It starts with light sleep, they go into deeper sleep, deep sleep, and then they come out of that sleep cycle. And before they can go into the next sleep cycle, there is this slight waking that happens.
Hmm.
And it happens for us too. Like in the middle of the
Yeah.
night, you would like adjust your blanket a little
I
bit
wake up.
or pull your pillow in a different
Yeah.
position.
Like I
And
wake up suddenly,
these
but like, see, we wake up, but we've learned how to go back to sleep. And I think the issue with babies is that they haven't learned. And then what we are doing is giving them these soothing things that they are then relying on.
Bingo. That's exactly what's happening, right? So between sleep cycles, when they are waking up, maybe one or two sleep cycles they can connect on their own, but then after 2 hours, they're
Okay.
just like, wait, when
Right.
I fell asleep, you were bottle feeding me, or you were nursing me, or you were rocking me, or you were giving my pacifier. Where is it now? I want it back to be able to go back to
Mm.
sleep. And then they cry, and then that is kind of what ends up getting us stuck in this cycle of 1 to 2 hourly wakings. It's
Right.
basically the things that we are doing to help them fall asleep are what causing the night wakings in the first place.
I see. I really appreciate this. But I'm also getting a little nervous because I'm like, I think all of us we've used pacifiers, we've used rocking, we've done all of this. But like, and like so many of us would nurse to sleep and all of that. So is it not like should we have not done, like, what do we do? Like, is nursing not a good idea? Because I know a lot of people do this, right? Like their baby will nurse to sleep in the day or even at night. So is it a bad habit? Because a lot of people like to do it because it's the way of connecting, and they also feel like, the baby's so small, they need that cuddle, they need those cuddles
Yeah.
and that support.
Yeah.
So what is your view on like nursing to sleep?
Absolutely. So I think that's such a great point to bring out. And the thing is, with when it comes to sleep association, there's a lot of nuance to it. I hate when sleep associations are labeled as good or bad. That's why, like, I am
Oh,
very particular that, like, when I talk about a sleep association, I will call it, yes, this is an external sleep association. And the
right.
thing with sleep associations are that they are only a problem if they are a problem for you. Is nursing to sleep a bad habit?
Mm.
Hell no. Is rocking to sleep a bad habit? No.
Ah,
Is anything that you provide, is it a bad habit? No. But when
okay.
it starts crossing over to that line where it's starting to
Yes.
cause a lot of night wakings, it's starting to disturb your baby's sleep, it is starting to disturb your own
Mm.
sleep, that's when you need to actually start considering, maybe do I need to change this? So
Right, right.
don't change what's not broken. If your baby is sleeping well, you are sleeping well, everybody is happy, and you could be doing any of these things. You could be nursing to sleep or rocking to sleep or doing any of these things, and it's working well for you. Don't change it. It's working well. Everybody's resting.
Okay, so right.
But
So you're saying that like it's okay, like if your child's using a pacifier, it's okay. But I think you're saying the issue is when that reliance becomes too much and then you notice these night wakings.
absolutely. There are a lot of babies who are
Mm,
nursed to sleep but are still sleeping through the night. But there are many babies who are waking up
right.
frequently, hatching to sleep throughout the night. So many moms that I work with, they are telling me that every hour, which means every sleep cycle transition, their baby is latching to sleep.
Right.
And they're getting sore from always sleeping in this like cuddle curl position.
Yeah.
They're
Right, right,
sore at
right.
night. They're not getting a lot of sleep because they're constantly in light sleep. Because you can imagine, right? When you're breastfeeding and your baby comes at the breast, you are going to like wake up during that time. And it's possible that you may even
Mm,
have trouble going back to sleep. Many of the moms that I
mm,
work with are not feeding in the sideline position. They are having to take the baby up in their lap, feed them, lay them
mm.
back. So you can imagine how much disruption that causes in their night. And some of them they're
Right.
like they're okay with it, but many of them are like, we are feeling tired. We are feeling trapped
Exactly.
because
Yeah,
if
yeah.
baby's nursing to sleep for naps and nights, mom is constantly in bed with the baby, during that time. And you can
Mm.
imagine how that would be for her. 14, 15 hours a day, she's in a dark room with the
Right.
baby. And that's tough.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. It really, yeah, it affects our health, our mental health, our physical health, to be in that situation. And I think that's what most of my clients say. They're like, now we can't just do it. Like, we're just so done. In the beginning, it was okay, but I think for them, they
yeah,
realize it's kind of carried on a bit too long. So one is hunger, which I think you explained. First few months, it's okay, but after a point, we need to focus on calories in the day. The next thing you're
yeah,
saying is that external sleep associations don't, they're not the worst thing, but yes, we do not want kids to be so attached to it. Now, the third thing that a lot of people say, and I know I've also kind of done this, and I've kind of told my clients, is it teething? Is it sleep regression? Because I feel like the whole day, that's all we're doing. We're blaming it on another sleep regression. Like, oh, my baby's finally sleeping again. They're waking up. So,
yeah.
what about all these phases they go through? Do they actually affect sleep?
Yeah. So I think, like you pointed out, right? Majority of the sleep problems that I see that are being caused are usually because of these external sleep associations that we just spoke about, because these have been going on for a
Yeah.
long time. But what about babies who were actually sleeping well and then suddenly they start having all these night wakings and everything?
Yeah.
Um, the thing with those babies, it definitely could be a sleep regression or a teething phase, but it's very important to understand in what ways do they impact sleep and how long do they impact sleep for.
Mm.
For example, let's talk about
Yeah.
teething. Okay, I feel teething is this unnecessary scapegoat for everything. From the age
Yeah.
of
Even for
4 months
eating.
onwards,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're all just like, baby's not sleeping, must be teething. Baby's not sleeping, must be teething. And I'm just like, how long has it been going on
Yeah.
for? They're like, it's been a month
Like
now.
months.
I said, babies don't teeth for a month. You know,
Yeah.
the process of the
It's about two
teeth,
weeks.
the
Yeah.
teeth
Yeah.
actually lesser, because the thing is, like, yes,
Mm.
the tooth starts emerging through the gums, but the painful part of it, like where it actually
Right.
starts disturbing sleep
Yeah.
or solids, is when the tooth is cutting through the gum. And you will be
Mm.
able to actually almost see that process, because you will start seeing
Yes.
places where the gum has swollen a little bit, exactly in the place where the teeth is coming. Or you will see these white nubs, these white little dots
Yeah.
that will start appearing, which
Yeah.
is basically you can see the tooth underneath the
Yeah.
skin. And when the teeth is
Yes.
cutting through, that is when it's painful. And that process could be as little as 2 or 3 days, sometimes overnight.
Mm.
Maximum is about 7 days. And if you are telling me that the sleep disturbance has been going on for a month and there are still no teeth to show for it wasn't teething.
Right.
It's time to look elsewhere, and it's time to stop blaming teething, because nature is not that unkind. Because
Ha!
our babies are going to be sprouting teeth
I know.
for the
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
10, 12 years of their life. First, their baby teeth, and that all falls out. And then their, like,
Yeah.
main adult teeth will start coming in. So it's not that unkind that you can blame
Right.
like
Right.
months
Yeah.
of sleepless night and just teething. Then, not to
Okay.
mention
Yeah. Yeah.
teething pain. It's a pain. You can manage it. You can give teethers, you
Yeah.
can give pain medication, and it's manageable.
But then, yeah, so you're saying that it shouldn't last so long, because even when it comes to food, a lot of times babies, they suddenly stop eating. So my clients are like, oh, it's teething. So then I tell them, okay, if it's teething, during that phase, let's work with them. So let's give them a cold mango pit or really ripe strawberry, or like give them the fruit
Yeah.
nibbler just for, I say you only use the fruit nibblers during teething, and let them gnaw and let them soothe their gums, because
Yeah.
also when they're teething, they're going through pain. So their body's kind of focused on that they don't have energy to kind of really eat and chew, and they just kind of want to take it easy. But I think
Yeah.
when it gets extended is when it becomes a problem, when it's like been 3 weeks
Yeah.
and your child is still not eating or stuff like that. So
Yeah.
okay, so teething cannot be the main reason. Give it a few days, and if it's longer than that, we know that's not it. Now, what about
It's
these,
not it.
okay, sleep regressions? Because I feel it's like,
It's,
how many times does it
it's a new
happen?
buzzword.
Yeah,
It's the new buzzword. Sleep regression must be a sleep
yeah,
regression. Like, I'm a part of a couple of these mom groups, and then I see so many moms who are just like, hey, my baby is 9 months old and won't sleep
Yeah.
for more than an hour at night and then keeps waking up. Or there's another mom is like, oh, my baby's 18 months old and they're still not sleeping through the night. And then the responses are coming in is just like, there is a sleep regression at 8 months, or there's a sleep regression at 18
Yeah.
months. And
Exactly. I feel like
the
it's
thing with
always
sleep,
happening.
it's okay.
Yeah.
So firstly, I think what we need to understand about sleep regressions is that they are progressions in your child's development. And sleep regressions, the way they are lift, like they pointed it out that like, okay, there is one at 4 months, and there's 6 months, and there's 8 months, and there's 12 months, and there's 18 months, and 24 months. If you keep tracking the month of the sleep regression, it's going to drive you crazy, because like you're always going to be
Right.
anticipating bad sleep, or when the bad sleep does come during that time,
Yeah.
you're always blaming it on it instead of looking for the real reason. Instead, what you need to understand is whenever your child is going through a new skill development, let's say they're learning how to crawl,
Right.
some babies do it around 7 to 8 months, some do it at a year, some do it at
Yeah.
6 months.
Right.
So there is no definite way of saying that the 8 month sleep regression, which is typically linked to crawling, is going to happen at 8 months. It can happen at any time.
Oh.
So that's the first thing
Hmm.
that we need to understand, is that just because
Yeah.
your baby is a certain age doesn't mean they are 100% going to go through that regression. There's actually a study done on it which shows that like there is no particular time in which at age at which all babies go through sleep regressions. I feel
Oh,
four
okay.
month regression, yeah, is the particularly possibly the only one where there is that whole thing where babies, the sleep cycles are getting rearranged, and this too can happen anything between 3.5 to 5.5 months almost. But all the other regressions, which are actually linked to progressions in development, whether it's cognitive,
Okay.
whether it's physical, can happen at any time. So that's the
Okay.
first thing. But the
Right.
second thing is how people ask me, okay, how long does it last? How long do I
Yeah.
have to bear with poor sleep?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
my child is going through a sleep regression. And
Yeah.
often that is linked to, I tell them, is often is linked to is how long is it going to take them to master that particular skill, whether it's rolling,
Mm.
whether it's crawling, whether it's walking. Normally, you will see 1 to 2 weeks where they're, really trying to master that skill, and that disturbs sleep because they want to start practicing it at night.
So they
That
wake up at
means,
night and they're crawling and rolling. Yes. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Now I get what you mean by
right?
that connection. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Or like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on in their minds. Let's say it comes from language development. There's so much going on. Or when they start developing object permanence. So there are all these cognitive developments as well that may not be like visible to you in terms of like what your baby is doing, but what they are feeling, what they're thinking. That is also, it's
Right.
distracting them from sleep.
I think that's
So
so nice how you've put it, because I think till now I've always thought of sleep regression as such a negative thing. But I think as for us as parents, it's so nice to kind of understand that no, it's actually related to developments that they're going through, their growth and learning these skills. And I think once as
yeah,
parents we understand what is happening and why it's happening, I think also our mindset, we are a bit more gentle in that thing. Like if we think of sleep regression, we're like, oh my god, they're
absolutely.
waking up every night, what do, like we're in panic mode. But if we kind of
Yeah,
understand and go with the flow, and that 4 month, that regression is the one that I know a lot about, because literally everyone's messaging me at 4 months saying we need to start solids because our child keeps waking up every time. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's not because they're starting solids, it's because it's around this month where they have realized they are their own person, where they are going through this phase where they are more aware of the world. So it's not only with waking up at night, you will see, or like they're like, my baby's staring at food. I'm like, because now they're staring at everything because they've suddenly realized this whole new world around them.
yeah,
Parents, we tend to
yeah,
isolate it and be like, it has to be the food and they want to eat. But
yeah,
I'm like, no, they're looking at food, but they're also looking outside and they're looking at you. So
yeah,
that's a dangerous one. That sleep regression is one that a lot of people tend to, you know, blame and use
yeah.
for many things.
But it is a very significant one as well, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like I think the rest of the
Yeah.
skills that like I have seen that, of course, like crawling will cause some issues with sleep, and walking will cause some issues with sleep. The 4 month mark is what you mentioned, the whole thing about becoming very aware of your surroundings and what's everything around you. On top of that, there is this whole bunch of crap that's happening in their head as well, because they're all of
Yeah.
their sleep cycles are
Yeah.
getting rearranged. We just spoke
Mm.
about sleep cycles earlier, how we have
Yes.
light sleep and deep sleep and REM sleep. that is a very mature organization of sleep cycle that is not there when they're newborns. When they're newborns, it's
Right.
very simple. There is light sleep and there is deep
Ah,
sleep. That's it. There's two stages of
okay.
sleep.
Oh,
And then when they turn about 4 months old, they end up getting four stages of sleep. So that's a very big cognitive
wow.
change that is
Right.
happening. And that is what is causing them to be so, like, it's very hard for them to sleep. But I think the thing with regressions is that they are not, again, something that should be causing months of sleepless nights. I'll tell you what actually does end up causing months of sleepless night, where
Right.
parents are like I mentioned, 8, 9 month old, 10 month old, 18 month old, still waking up every 2 hours. Is it a regression to blame? No. What
Mm,
ends up happening is that, let's say the regression did start or the teething
right.
did start, that in that short term, it disturbed sleep. And to be able to get that sleep back in order, what we started doing as parents, which any parent would do, is that we started
Yeah.
soothing more. We started
Yes.
rocking more. We started feeding
Yes.
more. We started
And then they
introducing the
get used to that.
pacifier. Yeah. And then we bring baby into bed if they
Ah,
were sleeping in the crib in the first place. And when we make all these changes because of this short term regression or teething
it gets
phase,
extended and then it extends past
yeah,
that. And that's when
ex-
okay, okay.
trouble begins, because then you have introduced all these more additional external sleep associations that weren't there earlier. And then, even if that cognitive development has passed, that physical milestone has passed, the sleep
Those
disturbance
associations stay.
continues to stay because the
Got it.
associations stay, which is going back to what we spoke about earlier, the external sleep associations and how
Yeah,
they cause night wakings. So this is the real tea on teething and regression. They are real. Never, like, I will never dismiss teething and regression, but they are
sure.
not the cause of months of sleepless night. They should not
Got
be
it.
blamed for months and years of sleepless nights.
I don't know what happens when we become parents. I think I'm sure we know this, but I think we just get a bit carried away or we just are so sleepy and tired that sometimes we also can't think straight. So we're like, just give the pacifier, just give it. And we also don't even realize how it becomes a habit because we are
Yeah,
just so we're so zoned out. And it's so interesting. And I think because my
yeah,
kids were already on a routine, it kind of flowed a bit. And then what happened is suddenly again, then they keep waking up. And I think what happened is we just got so used to holding and rocking them that they were doing okay, but then
yeah,
suddenly, like, especially post one, like, to get them to fall asleep, like, we were holding them sometimes for 1 hour, and I kept
yeah,
saying, it will pass, it will get better, it will, oh my God. And then suddenly, in a year and a half, I was like, I cannot be rocking them for 1 hour every night before they sleep. And that
yeah,
was like, I need to get help. But I totally get how you mean it. Just, you don't know what, you start something, you don't realize, and it just suddenly becomes our life. And it's really about catching that early on, and just being aware. I think just this episode for all the new parents, at least now you have it in your mind that, okay, these are not the main reasons, and let's stop ourselves before it becomes worse.
yeah. And honestly, like, there is definitely ways of, like, making changes anytime. So let's say if you find yourself stuck in a pattern of these 1 or 2 hourly wakings that has been going on for a
Yeah.
long, long time, one thing that I would encourage parents to consider and read about is sleep training. And
Mm,
sleep training is basically a process of helping your baby how to sleep without needing all these external sleep associations,
got
without
it.
needing nursing, rocking, pacifiers, holding, co-sleeping. So many of these sleep associations that are
Right.
unsustainable for you, they're causing sleep to become difficult in your family. Sleep training is a good way of moving away from that, which allows you and your child to get good sleep. And if you are hearing about sleep training for the first time, don't be worried. We are going to talk about sleep training in depth in the very next episode, because as a pediatric sleep consultant, I have, like, worked with over 300 families, sleep training them. I have a sleep training program as well. I'm just going to drop the link down below for you to check it out. I'm very passionate about sleep training. Something that I feel all parents should know is, at least as an option, they need to
Yeah.
understand that just
Yeah. Yeah.
accepting
Yeah.
your fate with sleepless nights, it's not
Is
the
not.
only thing,
And
the
yeah,
only
I
thing
mean,
out there.
I really feel like this episode was great because we spoke about there are reasons why our kids wake up, right? Like sometimes it'll be hunger, teething, sleep regression, all of that. But of course, that's not the long term thing. We cannot every day keep blaming it on that. So I think what
Yeah,
everyone's dying to know is then, okay, now what's the solution? What do we do then? And I know you mentioned sleep training. So I'm So excited to dive into that in the next episode. But I want to know, because I think when we say sleep training, we all get so nervous. So many of us get scared because it's like we just think of our babies crying a lot. So that's why I'm looking forward to the next episode where I'm sure you're going to clarify that for us.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about next episode as well. I'm going to bust some myths about sleep training
Yeah.
and talk
Right.
about how is it that you can get started on it, educate yourself about how to do it. And yeah, definitely tune in. And to all the listeners and anybody who's viewing it on YouTube, if you like this episode, please drop us a review and follow us on Instagram for new episode updates. I'm going to drop the link to our Instagram in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.